Next, Adam O. Aguirre, the anthropologist and educator. And he runs the anthropology discipline, I'm going to move to this mic, at Northwest Vista College. Feels passionately about making education both quality and accessible to everybody. And after a decade and a half of promoting social justice causes in his research through community organizing and, of course, in the streets, he is now focusing his attention almost exclusively on creating woke global citizens out of his students while protecting their right to a pluralistic and decolonized education. All of those words you never hear on local TV news, so I had to practice those. He also has a pretty good sense of humor. Give it up for Adam O. Aguirre.
I think in the last hour I've been called both a hipster and a millennial, which I don't know how I feel about that. I guess I can accept those monikers. But thank you for the introduction and to the PechaKucha organizers. Again, my name is Adam Aguirre. I'm the discipline coordinator of anthropology at Northwest Vista College, where I teach cultural and physical anthropology. And I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about anthropology, but mostly about threats to interdisciplinary study that we see in trends of higher education today. But first, a little bit of background about me and my research. I've had three major research sites in my career. The first was in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, where I studied social and political activism. The second was I wrote an ethnography of the Austin anarchist community, and most recently I worked with and researched the immigrant rights movement in southern Arizona. But for the past 3.5 years, I've been almost exclusively in the classroom and teaching my students about anthropology using the 4 fields method. And what I've learned is that anthropology is inherently interdisciplinary. What I mean by that is if we want to understand humanity, if we want to understand the human condition, we need to bring in lots of fields of study. We need to talk about art, and we need to talk about history, and we need to talk about economics and politics and biology and chemistry and all these different things, because it takes a lot to be a human. We're a complicated species, and if we want to understand human development both biologically and culturally, we need to understand all of that. Now, I want us to hang on to this idea of anthropology as being interdisciplinary and exploratory while we look at some of the threats to those very qualities. And I'm going to use it as an example, Texas's 60 by 30 plan. This is a plan from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board that basically says they would like 60% of adults ages 24 to 35 to have some sort of secondary education completion by the year 2030, which is a fantastic goal, right? More people, more educated. And one of the ways they're doing this is they're redefining college. They're saying we can no longer just value the traditional 4-year baccalaureate program. We also have to value 2-year associate programs and core completion programs and certification programs, which is fantastic, right? With most students being what we call non-traditional students, valuing other forms of education is long overdue. However, the problem comes in when we conflate these things, when we treat all of these things as if they're the same thing, which I think is what we're trying to do in education today. The more that we conflate these, the more that we basically put our students in a very precarious position. We basically tell them, look, kid, you have got to figure out exactly what you're going to do and when you're going to do it, and you got to do it yesterday. And we only have to look at our personal lives to see the problem there, right? I mean, when did you know what you wanted to be when you grow up? When were you sure what you wanted to do? And I think it also calls into question, well, what are the goals of education? Ultimately, what is education for? Is education to train students to be in a particular job, in a particular career, or is education to provide an exploratory, safe space where students can find out what they're passionate about while also learning soft skills like critical thinking and teamwork and personal responsibility? Which are very valuable to employers. And when I think about it in this way, I think of one of my professional heroes, Dr. Michael Wesch out of the Kansas State University. He's an anthropologist that has studied students today extensively, and he's found that students today are primarily concerned with 3 basic questions. Who am I? What am I going to do? And am I going to make it? And you can hear there's some thoughts to the future there, right? Possibly even a career. But it's a very personal choice. When I tell people what I do for a living, the response I get more than any other is, oh, that was one of my favorite classes. I loved my anthropology class. And I think I get that response so often because of the aforementioned exploratory nature of anthropology, but also because of when students experience anthropology classes. It's after high school at a time when they themselves are very exploratory. Now, if we take that idea and superimpose it onto, hey kid, you got to get on a path, and the sooner you get on that path, the further down that path you're going to go, well, we see a very stark disparity there. We constrain the options for these young people, and I argue we constrain the options for educators like myself and education in general. And that calls into question, what do we want for our community, right? What do we want to prioritize for our community? What are the things that we're missing out on as a community when we educate our students? And that should help us start thinking about the future. What I tell my students and what I want to tell you is that you cannot be satisfied with the constrained options in front of you. You have to vigorously look for other perspectives, and the more you do that, the more you liberate yourself from the constrained options in front of you, and you start to have a sort of collective self-determination for your community. And when we look at the future, obviously it's helpful to look at the past, and with that in mind, I want to turn to PechaKucha 15, which I actually attended about 2.5 years ago after recently returning to San Antonio after a 16-year hiatus. And I was there at the Carver Community Center feeling very awkward and watching all the beautiful people mix and mingle and thinking, what the hell am I doing here? I should just leave. And then one of those beautiful people came out of the crowd and walked up to me and introduced herself as Debbie. And she said, she wasn't hitting on me. And we had a very lovely conversation about permaculture and language acquisition, and I went back to my seat kicking myself, being like, I should have given her my contact information. And then up stepped my personal Cupid and now hero, Mr. Randy Beamer, who made a joke. He made a joke saying, well, now that all of you attendants have hit on each other, and it was actually that joke in combination with 2 glasses of wine that gave me the courage to find where Debbie was sitting and give her my contact information and encourage her to use it. And luckily for me, she did exactly that. And exactly 1 year later, I gave her the program for PechaKucha 15 as an anniversary gift with the notation that I kept this because I knew I was going to want to remember the night I met Debbie. And in the past 2.5 years, she has been an amazing partner and an amazing cohort in my adventures and in her adventures, and her loving kindness and easy smile has caused me to just think about the future in new and interesting ways. And when I think about the future, you know what?
Wait. You have the microphone. Can they turn the microphone on? Here, hang on, just a minute.
I love you so much. Yes. Will you marry me?
Yes.
I know. Would you like to do a Q&A with her? Please. I'm out of words. Now a lot of you are getting ready for that beer break. If you want to step up to the microphone there, I'm sorry. This is just a special moment. If you don't mind, I don't mean to intrude on this, but
you're responsible. You're responsible.
But we're in TV news. And did you have any idea this is coming?
No.
And
did you have any
long?
idea?
No. How long have you been working on this?
I think I first emailed the PechaKucha crew back in maybe August or September, something like that. So, a while.
Wow.
And so when you met at 15 there, stand on the box. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
No, she's going to fall off.
She didn't know she was going to be
up
up here.
I'm going to move this down a little. There we go. How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
She said yes.
And how did you come up with the idea to do this?
Well, like I said, we met at PechaKucha, and when I saw that one was coming up in a few months, I thought, what better way?
That's awesome. And now, what attracted you to him when you saw him among the thousands of people at that PechaKucha? As I recall, it was huge. It was a huge crowd, great crowd. What was it about him that said, that guy's kind of cool?
Just that I don't.
So it was the 2 glasses of wine, in other words.
It's 2 glasses of wine.
That's all. And what do you plan to do now?
I plan to continue educating my students and marry this one right here. I'm very lucky.
Give him a hand. I could ask you more embarrassing personal questions, but I can't. Thank you very much. And at the end of this, I'm going to go off stage, and you're going to introduce the beer break and tell them what they should do to not leave here without a friend.
That's right.
Give it up for Adam O. and Mrs. Aguirre.
Go out, get yourself a drink, be the first in line if you leave right now, and meet someone new.